You had been glued to your computer for hours, your fingers aching as you typed away. The report you were working on should have been finished by now, but exhaustion slowed you down. It wasn't that Mr. Jian had been pushing you. On the contrary, he'd been surprisingly patient lately, but the responsibility weighed heavily on your shoulders. You knew you had to get it done. Suddenly, you noticed Mr. Jian leaving his office. There weren't many people around at this hour, so it caught you off guard when he headed straight toward your desk. He rarely did that. His voice, calm but direct, interrupted your thoughts. Mr. Jian, you're not tired, are you? You blinked, trying to gauge his tone. Was he mocking you? No, there was something different about how he'd been acting these past few weeks. He was being kinder than usual, almost considerate, and you couldn't understand why. Yin, I'm almost done, sir, you responded quickly, trying to sound more confident than you felt. Mr. Jian, it's all right, he said, surprising you again. Take your time and submit it by tomorrow evening. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving you sitting there, puzzled. What had changed? The only reason that made sense to you was your father. Maybe Mr. Jian felt pity for you after his death, though it had been over a year now. It didn't seem logical that he would still treat you differently because of it. And he didn't know about your troubled marriage, which had fallen apart. It had been broken from the start, forced on you. You had kept the truth hidden. To Mr. Jian, you were just his former secretary's daughter, taking over your father's role. He had no idea about the emotional scars you carried or the burden of that failed marriage that weighed on you every day. The next morning, you entered the building with the completed report in hand. You made your way to Mr. Jian's office, determined to submit it early. You knocked gently on the door, and as your hand reached for the handle, the door suddenly swung open from the inside, making you stumble hard, your breath caught in your throat. Standing before you was Jungkook, Mr. Jian's son. The air seemed to freeze around you, the person you feared the most. Your heart raced as you hurriedly moved back immediately, bowing to him, trying to move out of his way. Yin, I am sorry, sir, you stammered, avoiding eye contact. Jungkook's gaze lingered on you for a moment, his voice surprisingly soft. Jungkook, there's nothing to apologize for. Are you all right? You nodded quickly, desperate for him to leave. Your throat felt tight, and your mind flashed back to that day, the day you saw him brutally beating a man in the elevator. He had told you to forget about it, but how could you? That memory was burned into your mind. Jungkook seemed to sense your discomfort, giving you a brief nod before walking past you, his presence still sending shivers down your spine. Despite his gentle tone, you couldn't shake the fear that always accompanied him. Inside the office, Mr. Jian sat behind his desk, his lips curling into a smirk. He had watched the exchange between you and Jungkook with keen interest, though he said nothing about it. As you approached him, Yin, good morning, Mr. Jian, you greeted, handing him the reports. Here's the report you asked for. Mr. Jian, sit down, he instructed, not taking his eyes off the papers. You sat, your eyes nervously darting around the room as he scanned through your work. The silence felt heavy, suffocating. After a few moments, he finally spoke, still not looking up from the report. Mr. Jian, how's the work going at your father's place? He asked, his tone carrying a hint of curiosity. Proudly, you straightened your posture, feeling a small sense of accomplishment. Yin, I've been doing fine so far, you replied, confident in the progress you had made since taking over. But before you could say anything further, Mr. Jian cut you off abruptly, his next words sending a chill down your spine. Mr. Jian, do you know how your father really died? His tone was casual. Your heart skipped a beat, your eyes widened, and a heavy lump formed in your throat. You weren't prepared for this, not for the painful memories of losing him. Yin, yes, he had an accident, and you began, your voice shaky. Before you could finish, Mr. Jian let out a dark, mocking laugh. Your stomach churned as your eyes blinked rapidly at his unexpected reaction. Why was he laughing? Mr. Jian, oh, you poor girl, he sneered, shaking his head slowly. You actually believe that? The room seemed to close in around you. Your pulse quickened, and you could feel the ground slipping beneath you. What was he trying to say? What could be worse than the accident that had taken your father from you? But the way he was looking at you, the sick amusement in his eyes, made your stomach churn with dread. Mr. Jian, he wasn't some innocent man who died in an accident. Mr. Jian continued, his eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction. Your father was shot while trading guns and selling drugs. He was my agent. You shook your head in disbelief, your eyebrows knitting together. Yin, that's not true. The words slipped from your lips before you could stop them. Mr. Jian, don't believe me? He taunted. Watching your reaction closely, he reached into his drawer and pulled out a stack of documents. Slowly, he slid them across the desk, toward you. See for yourself. Your hands trembled as you reached for it, not wanting to believe whatever was inside. Slowly, you opened it, and your heart shattered with every page you turned. Inside were documents, official agreements, licenses for guns and drugs, and the most damning evidence of all, photos. Photos of your father, armed with a gun, standing over bodies, negotiating with dangerous-looking men. Your heart sank as tears blurred your vision. This couldn't be real. This wasn't the father you knew. He had been kind, loving, but these papers told a different story, a story you couldn't accept. Just when you thought it couldn't get worse, Mr. Jian pulled out another document, a debt letter. The number written on it sent a jolt of pure terror through you. $500 million. Your vision blurred with tears, and your breath came in shallow gasps as you stared at the paper. The number might as well have been a death sentence. Mr. Jian, I know you can't pay this back, Mr. Jian said, his voice smooth and unbothered by your obvious distress, which is why I have a proposal for you. You looked up at him, your heart pounding. Yin, what do you want? You asked, your voice barely a whisper. I can't pay this. Mr. Jian's lips curved into a smile, one that made your skin crawl. Mr. Jian, it's simple, he said, his voice almost too casual for the weight of what he was about to say. I want you to marry my son, Jungkook. For a moment, you thought you hadn't heard him correctly. Marry Jungkook? The words echoed in your head, but they didn't make sense. Your mind couldn't grasp what he was asking of you. Marry Jungkook, that man known for his ruthlessness, his ties to the mafia, the man who had a reputation for cruelty. Yes, you knew everything about him after the incident in the elevator. You heard about him from your colleagues, about how dangerous he is. Your heart pounded in your chest as you shook your head. Yin, no, I can't, you stammered, tears streaming down your face now. Please, sir, I'll find a way to pay the debt. Just don't make me marry him. But Mr. Jian's expression hardened, his eyes cold as steel. Mr. Jian, you don't have a choice, he said flatly. Either you marry him, or you spend the rest of your life trying to pay off your father's debt. I'm giving you 5 days to decide. Panic rose in your chest. You clasped your hands together, begging, please, sir, don't do this to me. I'll do anything, just not this. His brows furrowed, but his voice remained cold. Mr. Jian, there's no harm in this deal, Yin. All you have to do is marry him, give me an heir, and after that, you can leave, divorce him if you want. I'll even clear the debt. Is it really that hard? The casual way he spoke of it made your skin crawl. He was treating you like an object, as if your life, your future, meant nothing. You felt sick to your stomach. Yin, you stammered, the word barely escaping your lips as the shock set in. Mr. Jian, yes, that's exactly what I want from you, he said, leaning forward slightly, his eyes locked onto yours. Marry my son, give me an heir, and then you're free. It's a simple transaction. There's nothing more to it. Mr. Jian, come here, he ordered, his cold gaze fixed on you as he slid a pen across the desk. Sign this. Your body tensed, but you didn't move. The contract lay open before you, a symbol of the life he was forcing upon you. I know you can't come up with any plan to pay the debts, he continued, his tone hardening with each word. So let's not waste each other's time. This is your only option. With shaking hands, you reached for the pen, feeling like you had no choice. Your mind screamed at you to stop. How could you fight back? Even if you wanted to go to the police, what could you say? Your father's criminal ties were right there in black and white. You signed the papers, feeling utterly defeated. As you walked out of the office, numb and broken, it felt as though your life was no longer your own. You had been engaged before, trapped in a nightmare with a man who abused and broke you in ways you couldn't even describe. His cruelty left scars no one could heal, scars that ran deeper than any physical pain. Each day with him was a torment, every moment spent in fear of what he would do next. You endured, silently, hoping for a way out. It wasn't until your father learned the truth saw the bruises, the pain in your eyes, that he stepped in and canceled the engagement you had been bound to that man by an agreement your grandmother had made, insisting it was for your family's good. Yet here you were, being forced into another marriage, another situation where you had no control, no say in your future. The fear you once knew all too well had returned, gripping your heart tightly. It was happening all over again. He was a monster, just like the last man, a mafia heir, a man who could easily hurt you, just as others had. And yet, you had no choice. You were trapped, and there was no one left to save you. As Jungkook sat at the dining table, the quiet clinking of silverware was the only sound filling the room. He had grown used to these silent dinners with his father, but tonight, that silence was shattered. Mr. Jian, always direct, always in control, spoke without looking up from his meal. Mr. Jian, Jungkook, I've found a bride for you. Jungkook scoffed, barely looking up from his plate. Jungkook, Dad, I've already told you I don't need you finding someone for me. But his father cut him off, his tone firm. It's Yin. The name hit him like a punch to the chest. Jungkook's hand froze, his fork slipping from his fingers and fall onto his plate. His heart, steady just moments ago, now raced uncontrollably. Jungkook, Yin, how did this happen? I mean, there's no way you just asked her to marry me out of nowhere. Mr. Jian, I did, and she agreed. Next week, you'll be getting married. You're already 28, and I don't want any more delays. Jungkook's heart was pounding so loudly he could barely hear anything else. Jungkook's mind was racing. He couldn't believe what his father was saying. This was the last thing he expected. Jungkook, she really said yes. His voice was shaky, a mix of disbelief and hope. Mr. Jian stood up from the table, his chair scraping the floor. Mr. Jian, and one more thing. You won't be seeing her before the wedding. She won't come to work next week, and I expect you not to go either. You know the rituals. Before Jungkook could respond, his father walked off, leaving him alone at the table. Jungkook's thoughts drifted back to that morning when he had seen you in the office, your shy demeanor, and the way your eyes had briefly met his. His heart fluttered just remembering it. The thought of you becoming his wife was almost too much to handle. He wanted to talk to you, to ask you how you felt. But he had to wait. His ears turned red just thinking about you, a smile tugging at his lips as he imagined the moment you would be his, officially. For the first time in a long while, Jungkook felt like a child again, excited, nervous, and filled with the kind of hope he never thought he'd experience. The day of the wedding had arrived, but you felt none of the joy or excitement that was supposed to come with it. Sitting in the bride's room, someone was working on your hair, yet all you could think about was how badly you wanted to run. You had considered it, even planned it, but Mr. Jian had men watching your every move. You were trapped. You still couldn't believe Jungkook hadn't even tried to contact you in all this time. It was clear to you he probably only wanted an heir, nothing more. How could you ever confide in someone like that? When it was time, you were led to the entrance of the aisle. Ryan, Jungkook's younger brother, stood beside you, offering his arm. He was smiling, clearly trying to ease the tension, but his attempts fell on deaf ears. Ryan, don't be nervous, okay? He said quietly, but you couldn't even bring yourself to respond. Ryan found your silence strange, but shrugged it off, continuing to guide you forward. As you reached the aisle, your body trembled, your knees felt weak, and your heart was pounding so hard you thought it might burst. You remembered Mr. Jian's words. Jungkook should never know the plan. If he found out, the consequences would be unbearable. Double the debt. You swallowed hard at the thought, feeling utterly trapped. Jungkook stood at the end of the aisle, waiting for you. His eyes lit up, and his stomach flipped when he saw you walking toward him. When you reached him, he extended his hand toward you, but you ignored it completely, walking past him and climbing the steps to the altar without sparing him a glance. He didn't know what he expected, but the way you kept your distance hurt him. He tried to catch your eye, hoping to figure out what was wrong, but you wouldn't look at him. You looked so pale, and your hands were shaking. It was obvious you hadn't slept, and everything about your body showed that you didn't want to be there. When the vows were over, it was time for the kiss. Jungkook hesitated. He could see the fear in your eyes. The idea of forcing a kiss in front of everyone made him feel sick. So instead, he gently took your shaky hand in his and pressed a soft kiss to your knuckles. It was a small gesture, but it felt right. For just a brief moment, your eyes lifted and met his. His heart stuttered at the sight of tears filled in your eyes, but before he could react, you quickly looked away. His heart ached. The ceremony ended. Shortly after, Mr. Jian gave his blessings and informed you both that he had urgent overseas business to attend to. He left immediately, leaving you and Jungkook in the awkward silence of newlywed tension. Ryan offered to drive you both home, sitting in the driver's seat while Jungkook opened the car door for you. Your heart raced at the thought of being alone with two men. You clenched your gown tightly, your body tense. Throughout the ride, you sat still, your mind racing, your fear evident in the stiffness of your posture. Jungkook, sitting beside you, was watching. He saw every flinch, every silent clutch of your hands. His heart sank deeper with every passing minute. He knew something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what. He wanted to reach out, to say something, to comfort you. But with Ryan in the car, it felt impossible. Once the car pulled up to the mansion, Ryan hopped out first, taking Jungkook's bags while Jungkook carried yours. And once inside, he spoke. Ryan, all right, I'll leave you two alone, Ryan teased, winking at his brother before disappearing into the house. Call me if you need anything. He dashed off, leaving you both standing in the grand entryway. Jungkook followed, your gaze as you took in the beauty of the mansion. He couldn't help but smile, hoping the sight might bring you some comfort. Jungkook, do you like it? He asked, his voice soft, trying to break the ice. You looked at him briefly, then quickly looked away, saying nothing. The fear in your eyes was unmistakable, and it made his heart sink. He forced a small, hopeful smile, trying again. Jungkook, we can redesign it if you want. You know, however you imagine your dream house to be. His tone was playful, an attempt to lighten the mood, but it fell flat. You gave a faint nod, but stayed silent, still too afraid to engage. Jungkook's heart clenched. He wasn't used to feeling this helpless. Jungkook, oh okay, he stammered, trying to maintain his composure. Let's go to our room, hum? His voice was gentle, but inside, he was struggling. He didn't want to push you. He had admired you for so long, and now, here, you were, his wife. But instead of happiness, all he felt was confusion and worry. You were so far away, even though you were right in front of him. With heavy heart, he led you towards the bedroom. In your room, you were already freshened up, while Jungkook was still in the washroom. The room around you was beautifully decorated, more luxurious than anything you'd ever seen before. Your house was small, nothing compared to this grand space. Your eyes landed on a small bookshelf, and for a brief moment, your fear of facing him vanished. You smiled, softly, walking over to it, pulling a book off the shelf and flipping through the pages. Jungkook quietly stepped out of the washroom, his movements so soft they made no sound. He paused when he saw you near the bookshelf, a smile tugging at his lips as he watched you. Biting his lip, he slowly walked over, his towel wrapped around his waist. Without warning, he reached from behind you, his bare chest brushing against your back, and pulled a book from the shelf. Jungkook, read this one. You'll like it for sure. The sudden touch and his voice startled you. Your eyes widened, and the book in your hand slipped from your grasp, falling to the floor. You bent forward quickly, trying to put some space between the two of you, your heart racing. When you looked back at him, your breath caught in your throat, your eyes immediately drawn to his tattooed chest. You blinked, caught off guard by the sight of him, and your surprise was obvious. Jungkook noticed your gaze, and a flicker of embarrassment crossed his face before he quickly became flustered. Jungkook, I'll put something on. He quickly grabbed a t-shirt and pants from the wardrobe and slipped into them, still feeling a bit awkward, before coming back to you. You stood there, leaning against the shelf, your head resting against it, trying hard to hold back your tears. Jungkook could see how shaken you were, and it made his chest tighten. He wanted to understand, to know why you were acting this way. Slowly, he walked over to you, gently placing a hand on your shoulder, but you immediately jerked away from his touch. The rejection stung, but more than that, it made him worry and his heart softened at your reaction. Jungkook, Yin, did I do something wrong? Did I upset you somehow? His voice was calm, soft, like he was talking to a child, but you didn't respond, too afraid to let him know the truth about this forced marriage. Jungkook was getting restless, worried because he hadn't heard you say a word since the wedding. Jungkook, are you uncomfortable with me? Please, talk to me. Your head stayed down, your hands clutching the shelf as if you needed something to hold onto. Finally, you spoke, but your voice was shaky, barely audible. Yin. And no, I'm not. Your words didn't convince him. He sighed again, more frustrated with himself than anything else. Jungkook, okay, don't stress yourself. Let's just get some rest, alright? He guided you gently to the bed, pulling the blanket over you, making sure to keep a safe distance as you closed your eyes, wanting him to go away as fast as possible. Jungkook's heart ached. He sat down on the couch across the room, eyes filled with sadness. Jungkook, I'll be over here on the couch. If you need anything, just wake me up, okay? You kept your eyes shut, not answering, and Jungkook knew something was terribly wrong, but he couldn't bring himself to ask why. All he could do was watch you from a distance, because you just weren't ready to speak up. Morning arrived softly, the golden light slipping through the curtains and spilling across the room. You blinked, the brightness making your eyes flutter. Something felt different. The sheets beneath you were too soft, the room too cozy, and you sat up quickly, your heart skipping as you realized you weren't in your own bed. Jungkook, hey, are you okay? You flinched hard, gripping the pillow between your teeth as you turned to see Jungkook sitting beside the bed on the ground, concern etched on his face. Your gaze shifted to the nightstand, where a tray of food was placed, filled with items that made your stomach rumble. Your mouth watered, and though you tried to hide it, Jungkook noticed. He was watching you with soft eyes, completely taken by the sight of your sleepy, disheveled look. Your hair was messy, your face still showing traces of sleep, and the way you were gripping the pillow between your teeth made him smile. His heart raced, and butterflies fluttered in his stomach. The thought that he was now married to you, that he'd get to see this every morning, filled him with a strange sense of joy. Jungkook, I'm sorry if I woke you, he said gently, his voice laced with care. But since you're awake now, maybe you'd like to eat. I know you didn't have much yesterday, so I made you something special for you. You blinked at him, pulling the pillow away from your mouth, but his words only triggered memories you'd been trying to bury. Your ex-fiancé used to bring you food in the mornings, too, after beating you the night before. It was always the same, a false act of kindness, only for him to hurt you again later. The thought made your stomach turn, and you couldn't even look at the tray anymore. Yin, I don't want to eat, you mumbled quietly, your voice shaky as you avoided his gaze. Jungkook's expression faltered. He had barely heard you speak since the wedding, so hearing a full sentence was both a relief and a concern. His brows furrowed slightly as he tried to understand what was wrong. Jungkook, why not? Did I make something you don't like? He asked, now shifting to sit directly on the bed in front of you, his eyes full of genuine concern. You gave him a sharp look, feeling defensive, but something in his eyes made you pause. He wasn't like your ex-fiancé. Last night, he didn't push you to talk when you needed space, and even now, he wasn't forcing anything. He was just waiting, ready to help with whatever you wanted. There was a softness in him, a respect that you weren't familiar with. Jungkook, tell me whatever you want to eat. Yin, he urged softly, his voice careful. I'll make it for you, or we can go out if you'd prefer that. You didn't find anything particularly wrong in his behavior, but a part of you wanted to test him, to see if he would react like your ex did whenever you made a small demand. You hesitated for a moment, watching him closely before speaking softly. Yin, I'd like to eat pasta. Jungkook's face lit up, his eyes twinkling as if you'd just given him the best news. His smile stretched wide, and his entire demeanor softened even more. Jungkook, pasta? Sure, I'll make it right away, he said, his excitement clear as he stood up quickly. You can freshen up while I get it ready, okay? Without waiting for another word, he grabbed the tray and hurried out of the room, practically running to the kitchen. You stared after him, surprised by how light and kind his reaction was. For a moment, your thoughts raced, and you whispered to yourself, Yin, maybe he's not a bad person, but it's only been a day. What if he's pretending? With that lingering doubt, you made your way to the washroom to freshen up, unsure of what to expect next, but cautiously hopeful that Jungkook might not be what you feared. It was nearly nightfall, and Jungkook had been by your side the entire day, silently making sure everything was just right for you. He was subtle in his care, not overbearing, but always present, his eyes following your movements, his footsteps echoing softly as he led you through the mansion. He seemed eager to show you every corner of the house. Jungkook, And this, he gestured toward the shining water, is our private pool. Do you like it? You gave a small nod, not saying much. He gave you a small, tight-lipped smile, clearly hoping for more, before continuing, so, do you want to make any changes? Anywhere you want to add your style or preferences? You looked at him, somewhat surprised by the question. His tone wasn't just polite, it was genuine, and the way he paused after each sentence, patiently waiting for your response, made you feel a sudden surge of courage. There was something in the way he treated you, with so much care, that allowed you to feel safe enough to speak your mind. Yin, I want to change the sofas in the living room, you said quietly, testing the waters, unsure if this simple request would bother him like it might have bothered others before. Jungkook's face softened almost immediately, and a warm smile tugged at his lips. He gently guided you toward a seat by the pool, where the moon was clearly visible. Jungkook, sit, he said, his voice calm, and tell me exactly how you want it. I'll make sure. Everything that doesn't please your eyes is changed. Your heart fluttered at the warmth in his words, and for the first time, you felt more comfortable expressing your thoughts. Without hesitation, you began explaining the small details, sharing what you'd change and how you imagined the space. Jungkook listened carefully, his eyes never leaving yours, as if savoring every word you said. But what you didn't realize was how seriously Jungkook took your words. Unbeknownst to you, everything you requested would be handled overnight. By morning, the mansion would reflect your touch, every change made just as you had described. Because for Jungkook, this wasn't just about altering his home, it was about making you feel like you belonged, that this was your home as much as his. Months had passed since your marriage to Jungkook, and despite the time that had gone by, you still found yourself holding back, your behavior stiff and reserved. Jungkook had done everything for you, small gestures, thoughtful surprises, and a kind of attentiveness you had never experienced before. It amazed you how keenly he observed your needs, fulfilling them without you ever having to ask. Other men had been different, but Jungkook was not like them. His kindness and patience were nothing like what you'd experienced before. He insisted that you take it easy, making it clear that working was your choice. Since Mr. Jeon was overseas, there was little work to be done anyway. This particular morning, you woke up late, feeling the all-too-familiar ache in your stomach. It was the third time you were getting periods here, and the pain was sharp like knives digging into your body. As you glanced around, Jungkook was nowhere to be found. You tried to stand up, but wobbly legs betrayed you as you felt a sudden warmth and your heart sank. Yin, no way. I leaked, you gasped, your eyes widening in horror. You quickly rose, only to see a large stain on the bed. Your thoughts spiraled back to a painful memory. The time you had stained the bed at your fiance's place. He had reacted with anger, making you work all day as punishment for what he saw as a mistake. The memory made your stomach churn, a rush of shame flooding through you. With trembling hands, you instinctively moved to remove the blanket. Just then, the door creaked open, revealing Jungkook. Panic surged through you as your eyes widened, and tears threatened to spill over. Jungkook, hey sweetheart, good morning, he greeted cheerfully, peeking inside the room. But his smile faltered as he noticed you sitting in tense posture on the bed. He stepped into the room, sensing the tension. Jungkook, is everything alright? He asked, his voice low and soothing. Your heart raced as his footsteps drew closer, and you clutched the sheet tightly, trying to hide the evidence of your accident. Jungkook, observant as always, seemed to put the pieces together quickly. Jungkook, let me guess, periods? He leaned in closer, his voice warm. You shook your head, feeling tears coming at the corners of your eyes. His soft chuckle eased your anxiety as he came even more closer, pressing a tender kiss to your forehead. Your eyes locked with him, and in that moment you felt your embarrassment crushing down. Jungkook, come on, stand up, he said softly, taking your hands and guiding you gently toward the washroom. I'll clean everything. You go and change. Before heading to the bed, he handed you fresh clothes and pads, a caring smile on his face. You watched him change the bedsheet, your heart swelling with appreciation for his kindness. You couldn't help but admire how effortlessly he took charge, making you feel safe even in your most vulnerable moments. You felt like crying. You had never expected to find someone who would treat you with such care. Jungkook, just a minute. I'll bring you breakfast, okay? Jungkook called out from the other side of the door. You hummed in response, a smile forming on your lips despite the earlier panic. As the hours passed, Jungkook returned to the room, holding a hot pad in his hands. He gently placed it on your stomach, soothing the cramping. He kissed your forehead softly. Jungkook, rest okay? I'll make you a hot chocolate shake in a bit. You nodded, feeling grateful as he turned off the lights before leaving the room. However, as he stepped out, he was surprised to find his father, Mr. Jeon, standing in the hallway. Jungkook, Dad, when did you arrive? Jungkook asked, his eyes widening in surprise clearly, shocked to see him. Mr. Jeon, hey, my son, how are you doing? Jungkook, great dad. I'm doing well, Jungkook replied. Jungkook and his father moved to the couch, and his father's eyes scanned the room, frowning slightly at the changes in the living room. Remarked Jeon. I see some things have changed. Jungkook glanced at his father, offering a small smile. Jungkook, yeah, Yin wanted it this way, so I had to double quotes. Remarked Jeon. Yeah, it's beautiful. Jungkook sat next to him, but before he could get to comfortable, his father spoke again, this time with a more serious tone. Remarked Jeon. So, it's been a while since you got married. Jungkook, made any progress? Jungkook smiled, though he wasn't entirely sure where this was going. Jungkook, yes dad, everything's going well. Mr. Jeon let out a relieved sigh, but his next words caught Jungkook off guard. Remarked Jeon. Good to hear. So, when am I going to get the good news? Jungkook frowned, confused. Jungkook, what good news? His father chuckled lightly. Remarked Jeon. Heir to the Jeon Empire, of course. Jungkook's smile disappeared as the weight of his father's words hit him. He thought his father had let go of that old obsession with the family empire, but clearly, he was wrong. His mind raced, flashing back to the conversations with his mother, how she had been pressured into marrying early, forced to have him for the sake of the family legacy. And now, his father was pushing the same expectations on him. A sudden chilling thought crossed his mind. Was this what his father had in mind all along? Had Yin been forced into this marriage too, just like his mother had been? Jungkook cleared his throat, trying to keep calm. Jungkook, Dad, we're not planning anything like that right now. Mr. Jeon's face twisted into a frown. Remarked Jeon. What do you mean, not planning? It's been over a month, Jungkook. Don't you think it's time to make Yin pregnant? Jungkook's eyes widened in shock, his entire body stiffening. He stood up, glaring down at his father. Jungkook, Dad, watch your language. Mr. Jeon's anger flared as he stood up to meet his son's eyes. Remarked Jeon. I'm thinking about what's best for the family. Jungkook, But before he could continue, Jungkook cut him off sharply. Jungkook, I don't want to discuss this right now. Dad, please. His voice was firm, leaving no room for argument, and he walked out, leaving his father fuming. Jungkook stepped out into the backyard, the cool evening breeze hitting his face. He needed to clear his head. His father's words echoed in his mind, and the uneasy thoughts about Yin gnawed at him. Could she have been pushed into this marriage? Just like his mother, he couldn't bear the thought. He needed to know the truth, but first, he needed to calm down. Back inside, Mr. Jeon's face was red with anger, his temper getting the best of him. He muttered under his breath, Mr. Jeon, that girl is useless. I need to take matters into my own hands. He called over one of the maids, whispering instructions in her ear. He handed her a small pouch of money and a vial of something. She nodded, understanding the task given to her. Meanwhile, after an hour of clearing his thoughts, Jungkook made his way back inside. He stopped at the stairs, but before he could climb them, the maid approached him, asking softly, Would you like something to drink, sir? Jungkook paused, looking up at the stairs toward your room, and remembered something, then replied, Jungkook, yes, make a hot milkshake for Yin, and I'll have some juice. The maid disappeared, and Jungkook sat down on the sofa, waiting. A few minutes later, she returned with a tray. Jungkook took the glass of juice, drinking it quickly, not noticing the maid's subtle glance. He then picked up the milkshake meant for you, ready to bring it up to your room. Jungkook's heart raced as he climbed the stairs, each step echoing in his mind like a warning bell. Something was terribly wrong, and unease gripped his body, sending jolts of anxiety through him. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and his breath quickened, making it hard to focus. Jungkook, what's happening? He muttered, glancing down at the milkshake he clutched in his hands as if it might offer some clarity. He ignored the tightening sensation in his chest and finally reached your bedroom door. He switched on the light, illuminating the space. You lay peacefully on the bed, and normally, this would calm him, But tonight, he felt a strange urge to shove the blanket aside and see your bare skin. His heart raced at the thought. In disbelief, he set the shake on the nightstand and slapped his cheeks, trying to regain control. But nothing changed. He looked back at you, his heart pounding as he slowly approached your side of the bed. The same troubling thoughts erupted again, and his knees felt weak. Jungkook, what the hell? He whispered, gripping the edge of the nightstand for support. In his clumsiness, he knocked over a vase, the crash breaking the silence and jolting you awake. You blinked rapidly, taking in the sight of him, confusion and concern knitting your brow together as you noticed the heavy sweat glistening on his forehead. Yin, Jungkook, are you okay? You asked, moving closer to him. He looked at you, trying to shake off the haze clouding his mind. But the sight of you, the worry etched across your features, the way your hair fell softly around your face only made him feel more overwhelmed. Yin, what happened? You stammered, sensing his distress. Without warning, he pulled you into a tight embrace. You were taken by surprise but didn't pull away. His arms felt strong yet intimate, and a wave of unease washed over you. Yin, hey, Jungkook, what are you doing? Leave me, you protested, feeling his lips brush against your shoulder. Your eyes widened in horror as you felt something pressing against your thighs, and your breath hitched in your throat. You struggled to push him away, but he held you tightly, and in an instant, you both fell onto the bed. Panic surged through you as memories of your ex-fiancé flooded your mind. Yin, Jungkook, please, listen to me. No. He remained silent, his lips trailing to your neck. You felt disgusting and terror build inside you. His lips traced a path down your neck, moving to your collarbone. You sensed where this all was going. Yin, Jungkook, stop, please. I'm on my period. Leave me alone. Your cries broke through his foggy mind, and he halted, confusion washing over his face. He quickly released you, stepping back, his own confusion build as he didn't know what he was doing. Jungkook, what's happening? He mumbled, breathing heavily, feeling dizzy and lost. You rushed to escape, and he watched helplessly as you ran out of the room. With unsteady legs, he stumbled to the bathroom, splashing cold water on his face, trying to regain control. Meanwhile, you raced down the stairs, panic fueling your speed, but your feet slipped on one of the steps, and before you could fall, suddenly Ryan caught you, your body collapsing into his arms. You cried out, fear lacing inside you as you instinctively clung to Ryan, feeling like a child again. Jungkook's heart sank at the sight of you in Ryan's embrace. It felt like a knife piercing through him, and he rushed toward you. Jungkook, Yin, I don't know what's happening. Please, don't be scared. But your name on his lips made you flinch as if your ex was calling you, ready to punish you. Ryan, what the hell did you do to her? Ryan's voice was low and dangerous, his arms tightening around you as he glared at Jungkook. Ignoring Ryan's question, Jungkook focused on you, his heart pounding. Jungkook, Yin, please, I didn't mean to. You shook your head violently, clutching onto Ryan for dear life, your breath coming in frantic gasps. Ryan's dark eyes were filled with questions, and Jungkook knew Ryan wanted an explanation. Jungkook closed his eyes, unable to find the words. He didn't mean to force himself on you, but he felt helpless. Jungkook, please, Ryan, let me talk to Yin. Ryan, but she's clearly terrified of you. Tears streamed down Jungkook's face. The girl he wanted to protect was now running away from him, and it broke his heart to see how you flinched every time he called your name. Jungkook, maybe it's better if I leave for now. He glanced at you and Ryan before walking away, knowing his brother would take care of you. Ryan could tell something was off. Jungkook was not the type to hurt anyone, especially not someone he cared about. Ryan, Yin, are you okay? Look, everything is fine, but you were too far gone, sobbing uncontrollably. Ryan, Yin, hey, it's okay. He kept trying to soothe you, hoping to bring you some comfort. Jungkook hurried down the stairs, his heart pounding with anger and frustration. He couldn't believe what had just happened after drinking the juice earlier. The loss of control made him hate himself, and now he needed answers. He stormed into the kitchen and spotted the maid. She froze, fear written on her face. As she tried to run, Jungkook grabbed a plate and threw it against the wall near her, the sound of it smashing making her stop in her tracks. Jungkook, you'll talk willingly, or I'll make sure you find out what hell feels like. The maid dropped to her knees, shaking and crying. Maid, I am sorry, sir. It wasn't me. It wasn't my idea. I didn't have a choice. Jungkook's voice was low but full of anger. Jungkook. Then who? Tell me, or this will be your last mistake. She hesitated, looking down, but she knew she had to speak to save her life. Maid. It was Mr. Jian. He gave me the powder and told me to put it in your drink. I didn't want to do it. Please, sir. I'm sorry. Jungkook felt as though a dagger had been thrust into his chest. His father, the man he thought had changed, had betrayed him once again. But now it was clear that the evil side of him still remained. Jungkook, get out, he barked, his fists clenched, veins visible under his skin as he fought the urge to destroy everything in his path. His tears fell like a river. He never thought he would hurt you like this, even in his disheveled state. The pain in your eyes and the terrified look on your face tore him apart inside. It made him want to end it all, to punish himself for what he had done, for causing you this much fear and pain. Hours passed, and Jungkook finally felt brave enough to enter the room. Guilt still weighed on him, but he knew he had to confront you. He slightly opened the door and peeked inside. A smile crept onto his face as he saw Ryan feeding you something, and you both were playing. Oh no, you looked a bit relaxed, which was why he had left you with Ryan. His personality always made people feel comfortable, and Jungkook was proud of him for handling you in such a situation. For a moment, Jungkook stood there, admiring you. Then, he pushed the door open fully and stepped inside. You sensed his presence immediately but kept your gaze fixed downward, avoiding his eyes. The sight of you looking away hit Jungkook like a punch to the gut. It felt like a physical blow. Ryan noticed the shift in the atmosphere and decided to step in. Ryan, you go, we're playing, he said playfully. Jungkook, let me join in too. I promise I'll be good. You tightened your grip on the cards in your hands, your gaze still averted, as if afraid to look up at him. Jungkook couldn't bear to see you like this any longer, so he knelt beside the bed, his heart racing. Jungkook, Yin, please let me explain. I can't stand seeing you treat me like this. The anger bubbled within you. How could he have the audacity to say that after everything? Yin, so what? Should I just accept the way you treated me? You don't get to decide how I feel. For the first time, you felt empowered to express your feelings, and you knew it was because Jungkook had made you comfortable enough to do so. Ryan had never seen his brother this vulnerable since their mother died, and he felt it was time to leave you both alone. Jungkook's eyes fell to the floor, and he rested his forehead on the edge of the bed, his voice barely above a whisper. Jungkook, please Yin, just listen to me. I was drugged. I know it's hard to believe. I want to explain everything. Yin, drugged. Your heart raced at his words. That made sense. He wasn't the type to force himself on anyone. Jungkook, my father drugged my drink to make me act this way. I know I messed up, but I never knew you hated my touch that much. I promise, I'll never touch you without your permission again. Yin, I love you, trust me. Your breath hitched at the mention of his father, and everything now made sense to you. But your eyes widened as you realized he was misunderstanding everything. You never hated his touch. In fact, you found comfort in how he held you. But today, the way he acted stirred painful memories within you, and you felt the need to tell him the truth. Yin, it's not that I hate your touch, Jungkook. It's just that the way you touched me reminded me of a touch I hate the most. His eyes widened, brows furrowing in confusion. You looked up at him, patting the space in front of you to signal him to sit. Without hesitation, he obeyed. Jungkook, tell me Yin, whatever is on your mind. I'm here to listen. You met his gaze, feeling the weight of your past pressing down on you. You took a deep breath. Yin, I was engaged before too, Jungkook, even before my father died. The man I was with was toxic. He used to force me and beat me, and as the words spilled out, you could feel the memories rushing back. You sobbed as you struggled to find the words, your voice trembling with pain. Yin, he never let me leave the house. He begged my father to live with me in a living relationship. I was trapped. He blackmailed me with my naked photos I couldn't even show to my father. I was so scared. I had to work like a maid, day in and day out. It was like living with a monster. Jungkook's heart ached for you. He could see the fear and sadness in your eyes. His anger builds up as the guilt overwhelmed him. Yin, I felt so alone. Jungkook, I thought I would never escape him. It's like I lost myself completely. I don't want to feel that way again. Jungkook's heart felt like it was shattering into pieces, his eyes glistening with tears. The realization that he had made you feel this way was unbearable. Anger began to bubble within him, a raging fire directed not just at himself, but at the person who had tormented you. It felt like he was holding back a storm, a tempest of rage and pain that threatened to consume him. Jungkook, you're not alone anymore. I promise you that. I'll protect you. No one will hurt you. Again, you're safe with me. I'm so sorry. No one should have to endure that. You were so strong to survive all that. I wish I could have been there for you. Yin, after my father found out, we reported him. He's in jail now. Relief washed over him momentarily, but it was short-living, quickly overshadowed by another pressing question. Jungkook, Yin, I want to ask something. Why did you agree to marry me? Yin, because of your father. He threatened me. He told me there was a debt to pay, which my father left before dying, and he demanded that I marry you and give him an heir. With each word you spoke, Jungkook felt like the world was falling apart beneath him. His breathing became uneven, every breath a reminder of the pain you had gone through. He reached out with a shaky hand, not sure if you'd let him touch you, but you took his hand and pressed it gently to your face, the warmth of your skin calming him a little. Jungkook, I'm so sorry, Yin. I had no idea you went through that. If you had just told me, I would have done everything I could to stop the marriage. You leaned into his hand, your eyes shining with tears. Yin, but that was the best decision of my life. I never regretted a single moment of being married to you. A wave of overwhelming joy and relief came through him as his eyes closed, tears falling down. His patience with you paid off. Yin, but I'm still afraid. Jungkook, his heart ached at the vulnerability in your voice, the fear that still lingered inside you. Jungkook, it's okay, Yin. You have me now. I promise I'll help you forget all the pain and every haunting memory. I'll fill your heart with my love. Yin, I trust you. Taking your hand gently, he studied your face, worry etching his features. Jungkook, your tummy isn't hurting, right? You shook your head, a faint smile on your lips. Yin, no, not much. I'm okay. Jungkook, I'm sorry. I disturbed your sleep before. Yin, yes, and I actually feel sleepy now. A surge of happiness filled him as you began to engage with him more, wiping away his tears. He pulled the blanket closer around you, tucking you in securely, feeling a protective instinct awaken within him. Jungkook, I'll handle my dad. You don't have to worry about anything, okay? After ensuring you were comfortable, he stepped out of the room, a heavy weight pressing on his chest. The disgust for his father churned in his stomach. The thought of even confronting him was unbearable. As he wiped away his tears, a dark smirk crossed his face. His father had harmed his most precious person, and there was no way he would let that slide. He needed justice, and he was going to ensure it was served. He pulled out his phone, his voice chilling as he dialed a number, each word laced with an icy determination. Jungkook, I want Mr. Jian arrested by tomorrow. I'm sending you all the evidence and details. Make sure he doesn't find out about this. He would do whatever it took to protect you, to make you feel safe and loved. You deserved nothing less. And now, it was time for the man who hurt you to face his fate. Jail wasn't enough to pay for what he had done. Jungkook would make sure he suffered beyond what prison could offer. He would make him regret every second. With his deep connections to officers and police, it would be easy to drag him down to the basement, where his real punishment awaited. The morning light filled the room as you slowly woke up, your eyes falling on Jungkook, who sat in the same spot beside your bed as he had the night before. The food he had prepared sat on the nightstand, and you couldn't help but smile as he greeted you softly. Jungkook, good morning, princess. You, morning. As you sat up, Jungkook reached for the plate, feeding you slowly, his fingers brushing yours with each bite. His eyes never left your face, watching you with an intensity that made it hard to meet his gaze. After you finished eating, he set the plate aside and smiled softly. Jungkook, I've already prepared a hot bath for you. Go take a bath, You nodded, heading to the bathroom while he made his way downstairs to clean up. He was putting the plate in the sink when a sudden loud thud echoed from the front door, followed by the familiar voice of his father. Jian, let me talk to my son. I have every right to see him. Jungkook's heart darkened at the sight of his father entering with police officers behind him. His hands tightened around the sink, but he maintained his composure. This was the man responsible for the chaos that had turned Jungkook's life upside down, the reason for so much pain. But even now, Jungkook remained a step ahead, always calculating, always prepared. He turned slowly, locking eyes with his father. He didn't need to say a word. His cold expression was enough to convey everything. He wasn't interested in any of his father's pleas or excuses. Jungkook signaled to the police with a slight nod, his father's screams growing desperate as they dragged him away. Mr. Jeon, Jungkook, don't do this. I'm your father. But Jungkook didn't turn back. He couldn't care less about the man who had betrayed him. The only thing on his mind was you. He needed to make sure you were okay. When Jungkook returned to the room, he saw you stepping out of the bathroom. The sight of you, fresh from the shower, made his heart pound, and for a moment, all his stress and tension melted away. You caught him staring and nervously lowered your gaze, fidgeting with your towel as you moved to the bed. Jungkook, hey, my wifey, how about we go out on a date today? His voice was soft, playful, as he plopped onto the bed beside you while you worked on your skincare routine. Okay. He smiled at your hesitant reply, squeezing a bit of the cream into his palm before rubbing it gently on your hands. But the sudden closeness made your heart race, and you pulled away slightly uncomfortable. With the unexpected touch, Jungkook paused, sensing your discomfort. His eyes searched yours, trying to understand. But when you gave him a small nod, he resumed, his touch much softer now, more careful. His fingers moved gently over your skin. Jungkook, let's take it slow, Months passed, and Jungkook never stopped proving his love for you. He was there in every moment, caring, gentle, and always showing how deeply he cherished you. You had grown completely comfortable with him, to the point where kisses and hugs had become a natural part of your daily life. The two of you hadn't gone further than those intimate gestures, but the love between you felt stronger than ever. One evening, Jungkook was in his working room, focused on finishing an important project, his fingers flying over the keys of his laptop. His brows were furrowed in concentration until he sensed someone at the door. He looked up, knowing exactly who it was, and a smile crept across his lips. You were standing in the doorway, peeking inside with a playful pout on your face. Come in, sweetheart, he called gently, his gaze soft, but you shook your head still, standing by the door. Yin, you said we'd watch a movie tonight, and here you are, working, you huffed, sounding playful but also a bit disappointed. Jungkook pressed his lips together into a thin smile, knowing he had promised you, but the work was pressing. Jungkook, I know, baby, I'm almost done, just a few more minutes, he replied, trying to reassure you. But you weren't convinced. Yin, bring your laptop and come with me, you commanded, your voice leaving no room for rejection. Jungkook knew better than to argue, especially when you used that tone. Quickly, he closed his laptop and followed you into the living room, setting up his laptop on the armrest of the couch. While you stretched out comfortably beside him, you laid your head on one end, with your legs resting on his lap, while the blanket covered the both of you. He mostly avoids working around you, because his whole attention automatically shifts towards you, resulting in delay of his work sometimes. But he tried to focus on finishing his work early, typing with one hand while his other gently caressed your feet under the blanket unconsciously. Every few minutes you would ask, are you done yet? Almost, baby. Just a moment, he would reply each time, his eyes still on the screen. But after a while, Jungkook gave in, closing the laptop with a soft click. You looked at him in surprise as he tossed the blanket aside a bit and climbed under it with you. A big smile spread across your face as you clapped your hands. Yin, finally, my baby, you teased, happy to have his full attention now. Jungkook chuckled and rested his head on your chest, his whole body settling on top of you. His weight felt comforting, like a protective blanket, and you couldn't help but smile, knowing how much you loved the feeling of him lying on you, and you knew he could tell how much you liked it too. Jungkook, I love you, he murmured into your skin. You laughed softly, brushing your fingers through his hair and kissing the top of his head. Yin, I love you more, you whispered back. For a while, the two of you watched the movie in comfortable silence, but soon, the on-screen couple began kissing, and the scene took a steamy turn. You noticed Jungkook's body tense slightly as the couple on screen started making out and undressing each other. He glanced up at you to see if you were uncomfortable. To his surprise, your face was calm, as if you weren't affected at all. But internally, it was a different story. You could feel the heat creeping up your neck as you fought to keep your expression neutral. Jungkook, however, wasn't fooled. His lips curled into a smirk, unable to help himself as he shifted slightly, a mischievous idea settling in his mind. He calmly let his lips brush against your bare collarbone. The sudden touch sent a shiver down your spine. Yin, Jungkook, you stammered, your voice barely a whisper. Jungkook, yes baby, he murmured against your skin, his lips ghosting over your collarbone. In the softest of touches, he expected you to ask him to stop, to pull away, but what you said next sent a shock through him. Yin, do more, you whispered, your voice breathy and full of desire. Jungkook's eyes darkened with excitement at your words. He didn't need to be told twice. Jungkook moved his lips along your collarbone, his tongue flicking out to taste your skin as his teeth pulled gently. He could feel the way your body reacted beneath him, how your back arched when he moved to your neck, and biting softly. His touch was tender, but the fire between you was undeniable. He kissed his way up to your neck, the wet warmth of his tongue trailing along your chin, making you gasp. You gripped his hair tightly, pulling his lips up to meet yours in a desperate kiss. Jungkook responded immediately, his lips moving hungrily against yours, his tongue teasing and exploring every inch of your mouth. The kiss grew deeper, more intense. Your hands roamed over his back, feeling the firm muscles beneath his skin. His body was pressed against yours, his chest rising and falling heavily as the kiss turned more heated. Jungkook pulled back slightly, his breath heavy, as he gazed at you, pupils blown wide with lust. In one swift motion, he pulled back slightly and yanked your shirt, tossing it aside. Your eyes widened as you took in the sight of him, his toned chest, the definition of his muscles. Jungkook chuckled at your reaction, leaning down to capture your lips again. Jungkook, like what you see, he teased between kisses. Yin, you have a nice body, you breathed. He smirked, his eyes full of mischief. Then touch me, I'm all yours. Without hesitating, you ran your hands over his ass, tracing every line and curve. He gripped softly at your touch, clearly enjoying the way your fingers explored his body. As things heated up between you and Jungkook, you felt an overwhelming desire taking over. His touches were soft, deliberate, and even as your hands grew rougher, more aggressive, he remained gentle. Jungkook could sense your shift. Your breathing grew heavier, and your nails dragged across his back, leaving faint marks. You didn't know where this boldness was coming from. The way he treated you, always gentle, always caring, made you want to give back the same intensity. You pulled him closer, kissing him harder, your lips moving with more urgency. Jungkook chuckled lowly into your mouth, his hands roaming over your body, but always with the same care he had shown before. He knew his boundaries, even when his hormones were raging and his body for more. He never pushed, he was in control, always watching you, making sure that at every step you felt secure, cherished, and loved. His voice was low, his breath warm against your ear as he whispered, "You're safe with me, baby, I promise." Time passed in a blur of touches and kisses until, in the heat of the moment, you accidentally scratched his back, hard enough to make him wince. You immediately pulled back, wide-eyed. "Yin, I am sorry," you stammered, guilt creeping into your voice. But Jungkook just smirked, his voice low and raspy as he whispered against your lips. His words sent a wave of excitement through you, making you lose control once again. You didn't hesitate this time. Your hands roamed over his body, digging into his back as his lips moved over your skin, and you it did again and again. Jungkook chuckled softly, his lips brushing over your collarbone as he murmured, "Jungkook, you're getting rough with me, huh?" You blushed, feeling embarrassed, but he quickly kissed away any insecurity you had. "Jungkook, don't worry, baby, I love it when you're like this. Just know that I'm here to make sure you feel loved. We'll go at your pace, okay? Always. In that moment, everything felt perfect.